go back from church after having stood there for about an hour answering questions about the United States. How can we get books? How can we learn? Do you think that we could go to the outside world? Do you think that we could learn this? Could we do that? You can do anything. It was beautiful. And there Josiah sat. She was waiting for me. Okay, Josiah, I'm ready. I'll work on your back for you. And we go into her home. And she looks at me. And I look at her. And I said, Spirit's going to guide me. And she goes, it's interpreted to her. It's translated. Spirit's going to guide me. And she goes, I understand. And I was able to do energy work with Josiah in a shamanic way that assisted lifting her burdens, releasing what her burdens were, further clearing the ancestors, for she was already the part of the ancestor that Job had worked on from the waterfalls. All of that tied into this. Job had forgiven the ancestors. Now I could work directly with her and clear what it was that she carried as a burden, and I saw it. The insights came whipping around. I saw it. I knew it was a knowing. And I went through the iterations, and my hands on her body, and my hands here, my hands there. Spirit guiding me in exactly what I needed to do. And I didn't have my tools. And that was another lesson learned. I don't have to have the emblems and the tools and the this, that, and the other that we as energy workers carry around thinking that it can't get done unless I have the tools. I did not need those tools. And it was enlightening to know, because I could feel it. And we finished the session, and I explained to Job, who explains to her how she needs to rest. And I said that I had some insights for her, and she said, what were they? And I shared with Job, I don't know why, but your brother-in-law, Maes, says, you're forgiven. All is forgiven. You need to know you can let it go. All is forgiven. And there is an additional burden. I don't understand what it is. I don't know who it is. I know that you need to stop carrying this load of shame and let it go. You have been forgiven. And the word that you're supposed to hold on to is forgiveness. And she looks at me, and she looks at me again, and tears start going down her eyes. And then I learned the family history. She had lost a son to child soldiers. And she had never seen that son again from the age of 10 on. And she never forgave herself for what could have happened to that child. And she always held on to that. And this was a message of forgiveness there. And then another dynamic came in. And this is when I found out about my boyfriend's family. He was one of 6 children. 5 had died from childhood diseases. He was the only remaining one. And I said, but I don't understand. What does this mean? The last time he was there and visited Caluquembe, he was there with his sibling had just died. Well, I said, well, what do you mean a sibling had died? Whenever a family leaves, when his mother and father had left this area, they leave a child. That child is a remembrance of the parents. And that child is the connection to the family. And that child had died from a childhood disease. And 3 other siblings had already died. And his father had never forgiven her, saying, I will never have Job come back here because you will not get any of my siblings. They have passed. I don't know what you're doing. Are you doing something? I will never bring you back. And so when I told her, my ass forgave her, when I told her that that name came to me and she's forgiven, I was telling her that her sister's husband had forgiven her regarding all of the children passing away, and that she no longer had to hold that burden. And she took this in and she's looking at me. I said, Job, will you please explain to her that I didn't know any of this? And he did. And she looks at me again and she goes to rest. The next time we got back up was for dinner. And her husband, and again, first time ever breaking tradition, asked me to pray over the food for dinner. This was significant again. I thanked him for allowing me, and Job translated what I said as a prayer over the dinner, for blessing the family and thanking the family for opening their hearts, for bringing me to them and allowing me to stay. And that if I'm to fulfill a prophecy, please let it be spirit guided and to truly bring forward what it is that they hoped for, whatever that may be. And we blessed the food and we ate that night. It was a solemn night. It was a night I'll never forget. So much moved. We slept well that night, exhausted. It had been a long day. Got up the next morning and waiting for the cabs to come get us at 10 a.m. We had roasted corn for breakfast. And that morning, Josiah came and greeted me and Job with a hug. And for the first time I had arrived, she smiled. And as we sat in the chairs waiting for the motorcycles to arrive to come and take us, she sang. And her daughter said, I haven't heard my mother sing in years. She sang songs that morning. She smiled that morning. She was jovial. She looked like a weight had been lifted. And all I could say is thank you, Spirit, for being your vessel, that humble servant, and for working through me to work with this family in this manner.